Well, I hope we're getting that out of Numbers. The fact that here's a people as they're journeying toward the promised land, and we see their failures. And we're going to, if we get this far tonight, we'll observe this in the 14th chapter. But God's orderly way of setting things forward. And I think we see this, first of all, in the arrangement that we looked at. And we're going to say, how did the three families, Gershon, Kohath, Merari, they're the tribes of Levi, how they meshed together to join the other tribes of Israel in the departure from the wilderness of Sinai. I think you could be a preacher and not know this. But if you want to know your Bible, and you realize all these wordings that we'll see in chapter 10, beginning with verse 11, I want us just to put it to test and see, does this work out the way it was supposed to? We spent a lot of time, or I did, on trying to see are these tribes, there's the way they're set aside and whether they're going to encamp. And what we see beginning in chapter 10 and verse 11 is that this camp is getting ready to leave. And you begin to see, did they go in an orderly fashion? I think they did. And one of the things I also noticed is that as you face each one of the tribes, like you're facing east and you got Judah, the one on the left, Issachar, after Judah leads the way, the one on the left, Issachar, will go and Zebulun will go. When you're facing the tribe of Reuben from the tabernacle, one on the left will go first, then the one on the right. When you're facing west, you got Ephraim going first, Manasseh will go, and then Benjamin. When you're facing Dan, well, Asher, Nephi, it doesn't change. It's exactly the way it is. And you'll notice that when we get to chapter 16, you've got the Kohathites, who we see the sons of Korah, or Korah, and his group. They are involved in revolting against Moses. Who are they roomed next to? Who's right there below them? Sons of Reuben on their side. Kind of grouped together, and you got thinking together and start arguing together and complaining together. That works sometimes. But it's interesting, those are the two leaders that are going against Moses and Aaron. And they dwell pretty close together. And one of the sons, Reuben, he doesn't seem to be involved with that. He is at first, but then he backs off. But I just want us to see this. I asked the question, how does this meshing of these families mesh together with the tribes of Israel as they depart from the wilderness? Now, when we begin to look at that, notice the time frame. We got a time frame picture here. And all these time things I think are important to realize, well, what are we talking about? And we look at Numbers 1, the second year, and the first day of the month of the second year, and in the second month, that's when Numbers 1:1 kind of starts. When is this? What happens here? It came to pass in the second year, in the second month, all right, but on the 20th day of the month, the cloud was taken up from over the tabernacle of the testimony. Now, we studied last week. You ought to know what that cloud is. What's the cloud doing? It's guiding them. It's time to go. And it's going to be dwelling over the wilderness of Paran. As we're heading north toward the promised land, it's time to go. So let's see, how does this group mesh together? I think it's orderly. And you want to attempt to try to do that? I go buy you dinner if you did. Because not everybody could do that. But how does it mesh together? Let's see how that could work. Verses 11 through 16. What is in verse 14? Who's the tribe that goes first? Just like they planned it. Just like they planned it in the earlier chapters. I remember those chapters. And now it plans. So Judah goes first. And then you have Issachar on the left and Zebulun on the right. They follow after that. So then the tabernacle was taken down. Oh, what had to happen first before the tabernacle is going to be moving? We looked at that. We looked at details of that. And all of a sudden, what do we see? What has to happen first? But we got to pack things. We got to cover things. And you had Aaron and his sons. You had the priest come and cover it. Kohathites could not, they got to be the next one to bear it, but they couldn't do that unless it was all covered, and they were not to look on that, not to be there and look at it in person. So all of a sudden, Kohathites are ready to take it out. What happened before that? See, what happens before? It all fits. They had to be covered there, and then they now could take that out. And notice how this works. The tabernacle was taken down without telling us what the priest did. I know they did that first, but the Kohathites wouldn't be touching it. They wouldn't be looking upon it. It's all covered, and then they come and do their thing. Well, the sons of Gershon and the sons of Merari. Well, there's the two, Gershonites and the Merarites. Remember, the Merarites, they would be having that hard, big lumber. They got more oxen to carry more carts and wagons, and they would be carrying the big boards and the big things that unite together. They make sense. I know that's their job, and he just speaks about them doing that. But also the Gershonites, they'll be taking the tents, and the particular curtains, and they might be lighter in weight, but they're involved in doing that. And so they move forward. And then the standard of the camp of Reuben, that's to our south, that's the way it was supposed to go. They go south. And Reuben and forward to their host, and over his host was Eleazar, the son of Shedar. And over the host of the tribe of the children of Simeon was Shelemiah, and the son of Zerzadai. And over the host of the tribe of the children of Gad, the one on the left goes first, the one on the right then goes, was the son of Duel. And then the Kohathites set forth, buried the sanctuary. Got things covered. Got them taking now those apart. Now, who carries that load? Who carries the load? You got the Kohathites. You got Judah coming out, and then you have the standard of Reuben going in. Now you're going to have that moving forward. And the Kohathites, verse 21, set forward, bearing the sanctuary, and the others did set up the tabernacle against their coming. So they're going on a 3 days journey. They're going to be there, and they'll have it set up for that. We'll see how that unfolds. But now you see the rest of the tribes. The standard of the children of Ephraim, verse 22. They start going out. Then you got the standard of Dan. They start going out. And which was the rearward of all the camps forward, just like they planned. It goes east and south, and you got the tabernacle being prepared, Kohathites going there, and you got the two most numerous tribes that are indeed going to be at the front and going to be at the back. Protection. Remember, why did they number 603,550? What's that a number of? Just how the population of Israel? Those are the fighting men. They're going in the wilderness. They're going on the way to the promised land. And here is that orderly going. It's going by the cloud. The cloud says time to move. But this is how they were prepared to orderly go. It wasn't just everybody get out of town by 4 and we'll see you on the freeways. Good luck. It was orderly going. Tabernacle's kind of prepared in the middle. It's protected. But they have an orderly way of going out. And I just think sometimes we get caught up in the names, but just to see that part, it's worth all of the time that you put in to try to understand how come these tribes are connected together. And then also understand maybe why the Kohathites and Reubenites were all kind of being mad after a while and murmuring against God. And those are things, if you want to know your Bible, you don't have to be a preacher. You're not going to get extra credit for that. But just to know how things unfold, you realize there's a reason for God and what he revealed. We can get a hold of that and try to make sense of that. So to me, that's how they all mesh together. Just like they set up the camps, now they're going to orderly go with that, with the leading of the standard setting forth by starting with Judah. Okay, question 2. How did the three families, What was Moses manifesting lack of faith of Jehovah? And the authoritative cloud, when he asked for Hobab's help in traveling in the wilderness and to the promised land? I thought you needed something to interest you. So let's notice. Moses said unto Hobab, the son of Ruel, the Midianite, Moses' father-in-law. That's not Ruel, like in some of your Bibles. This is his brother. Ruel's the father-in-law. This is his brother-in-law. We are journeying into the place which Jehovah said, I will give you. Come now with us, and we will do thee good. For Jehovah has spoken good concerning Israel. So Hobab, you come, brother-in-law. And he said unto him, I will not go, but I will depart to my own land and to my kindred. And then Moses said this, leave us not, I pray thee, for as much as thou knowest how we are to encamp in the wilderness, thou shalt be to us instead of eyes. And it shall be, if thou go with us, yea, it shall be that what goodsoever Jehovah shall do unto us, the same will do unto thee. But when I read my Bible, I ask questions and try to say, well, whoa, this cloud business was direction. You're going to be taking a direction going a certain way, and you're not supposed to go until I tell you to go, and he's going to direct you where you go. How do I need eyes of Hobab? And so wanting him to go so badly that we don't know. We need you to be our eyes. Why is that not a contradiction? I don't believe it is. It just leads you into a thought that God doesn't contradict himself, and Moses is going to do something pretty bad before this book's over. But this isn't the time where there's any indication that, whoa, are you trying to go the direction of Hobab? He's a man experienced in this region. He knows the wilderness. How does that not contradict Moses relying on God in the cloud for direction? And you may not have thought that's a problem, but if so, tell me the explanation.
God works through the ways of men. And so even as Moses went to talk to Pharaoh, God allowed his brother to be a spokesperson. So God could have said, no, Moses, I said, you're going to do it, you're going to do it. But he allowed, I'm not saying he was approving of what Moses did.
That may be good, yeah.
Aaron to be the spokesperson. So God does work through the ways of men to provide the help that he's giving them.
So was Moses lacking faith? That's my question. When put in your is he lacking faith now because God allowed him to have someone else to direct his way? To even say, is that a lack of faith? Like, well, I wanted Moses to do it, but Aaron could be a spokesman. He will accommodate it, and he's going to do that for Moses after a while. But not here. I don't see anything condemning it. And he said, well, it's not written, so don't worry about it. I'm just thinking. That's how we learn our Bibles, of direction, of that, and maybe pick up on stuff. It's one thing to know when to go and the direction you're going. It's another thing, do we need to camp at this point of this wilderness, near this water place, that particular place? I can be going the direction of Kadesh Barnea, but in the particular thing, is this a good place for us to camp? Plenty of water, plenty of protection. Is this a good place to do it? There's no contradiction there. We can pray to God for direction and then realize maybe how these little steps on there, God has not taken us there. He just, here's the direction, it's when to go and when to stop. But what about having the eyes? That's what he said. We haven't been through here like that. You know this wilderness like the back of your hand, so to speak. Why don't you go with us? And I think God allows that. And he allows that in our lives. We can have the direction to go, but there may be things that will help us in the direction of getting advice here. Or talk to God. If you lack wisdom, talk to God. Just pray to God. Well, I will. But he hasn't specified every little step sometimes. And I can ask advice of someone I can trust. What do you think about that? What do you think about that move? There's 3 different places I could go work, and what will be the best thing for me? I'll pray to God, and I'm waiting for him to give direction. But you kind of lived here before. You know the church is here. Where would you think would be a good place to raise a family? There's nothing that contradicts praying for God's wisdom, go in the direction of God when he hasn't specified, and idea that there's going to be little intermediate places that this might be the best place for all of us to encamp. But what does Hobab say? You had your hand?
Yeah, I was just going to add on to the Hobab thing would be that God doesn't give him all the information of what's ahead. He just says, we're going this way, and that's it. And maybe he uses Hobab as he uses mine and say, we're going this way. What is this way? Is there any tribe that's could attack us potentially? God will let me know later, maybe, if there is. But he's of mind if there's trouble, is there not on this route?
Yeah, and those are the little details that fill the whole plan, so it harmonizes to me. And I think that's what is happening here. Now, my next question is that did Hobab change his mind? You say, why in the world would you say that? Because I read my Bible. And I read it into the future. And right here you get the impression, no way. But come with me to Judges. And we go a little bit later. This is after they're going to dwell in the land, and they're all involved in doing that. But we begin to see what happens. Who's now present? So let me see where I wrote it in our Judges 1:16. And the children of the Kenite, those are the people that wander in the wilderness. We've seen that word before. Moses' brother-in-law went up out of the city of the palm trees, that's Jericho, and his children of Judah in the wilderness of Judah, which is in the south of Arad, and they went and dwelt with the people. I think he changed his mind, don't you? Because he's there with the people now. As they're in the times of the judges, at one point he went with his people. And where are they located? There's Jericho, those places. So I think he changed his mind to be of help to them. And I'm basing it on Judges 1:16, not my feelings. It's Judges 1:16. He's with the people now. And maybe he brought his people with him after all, that he could be of help. But right now, we don't see that happening. We just see Moses wanting him to come, pleading with him to come. And I don't think that is a lack of faith on Moses. It's just being smart, because the terrain he's about to go, he's not aware of that. Maybe he would have some ideas about it. That's inserted in our Bibles for us to think about. So any other thoughts you might have before we move on? Yes?
Well, I think that none of us are now, we build our confidence on those around us, with gifts and talents. And he saw a talent in this.
Yeah. And he liked his brother-in-law, and that's something. That's great.
Jerry, I was just going to say, it's not specifically about having a person in like Hobab here, but that God gives us direction to do things, but a lot of times the way we do them is kind of left, like we're taking the Lord's Supper, but there's no commandment. We have to have 6 men in the front to take the plates and carry them. We could all single file by the table and get, the elements. So the way that we go about things is left up to us in a lot of cases, and I think this might be kind of along those lines. You're to travel this way, you're to move when it's cloud, you're to stop when it's the pillar of fire, and all of that. But and the order that you're to travel is set, but we may have to bypass this canyon here, or, whatever.
Yeah.
And so somebody who knows the terrain and can offer that advice, just as we have elders here who, there are things that are not necessarily a doctrinal matter, but just making decisions about how the congregation is going to accomplish something.
Yeah.
And it's the same kind of thing.
I think, yeah, it's not necessarily a contradiction, is it? Or Moses didn't trust God anymore. That's right. Yes, sir?
Earlier, when Moses was rendering judgments for the people of Israel, Jethro saw that event, and he told him, he said, man, you're crazy. This is too much for you. And he offered some advice, and Moses took it. And certainly, God could have, given Moses that advice, but for whatever reason, he chose not to do it. And I think that kind of goes back to what you were saying, that he may give us a general way that he wants things done, but then he kind of leaves it up to us as to how to get there.
Yeah.
And the same thing in this example here, something may have been directing where the Israelites are going to go, but it may not have been as specific as this individual, could make it.
That's a good point. Yeah. I think those are all good thoughts. I appreciate you doing that. All right. Question number 3. What is the difference between the people who spoke evil of Jehovah, those who complained about having only manna, and Moses, who's complained about the position God has placed him in? Moses does some complaining. And yet, people complained about the manna. People complained in the ears of Jehovah, don't exactly know what the complaint was, but God took it as blasphemy. And again, I read that. How bad was the first part? Well, the people were as murmurers. They were speaking evil in the ears of Jehovah, and Jehovah heard it. His anger was kindled, and the fire of Jehovah burnt among them and devoured in the uttermost part of the camp. How many died that day? Just because of their murmuring. Does it say? Did it wipe out the whole camp? Or was it just the campsite burning to the uttermost at the edges? And here they are in the middle, complaining against God. What shut them up? I'm not wondering if anybody was killed that day, but when they are, we're going to see, he'll number them for us, 14,700. They died because they murmured. Not here. It just says the uttermost part of the camp. Yeah, that camp, where Reuben is, outside of that, and the uttermost part of the camp just devoured everything. Would that get your attention? It may be coming in, like the fires on the West Coast. It may be coming in after us. And the people cried unto Moses. Moses prayed unto Jehovah, and the fire abated. End of that section. Was God pleased with them because murmuring? And it came to his ears, and they were speaking evil in the ears of Jehovah. Did he like that? Well, no, we can't. They didn't like murmurers. He doesn't like murmurers. And that's true. And this whole section, as they're making their journey, they're going to complain, they're going to murmur, and we're seeing how God deals with that. So I want us to say, well, and then we come to the mixed multitude, verse 4. So what's the mixed multitude? You got people maybe coming from Egypt that was they came with the Israelites, mixed multitude. There was among those that lusted exceedingly. They knew about what it was like in Egypt, along with the people who had been in captivity. And the children of Israel also wept again and said, who shall give us flesh to eat? We remember the fish, which we did eat in Egypt, for naught. The cucumbers, the melons, the leeks, the onions, and the garlic. But how now our soul is dried away. What did they have? They weren't completely left alone, were they? What did they have to eat? Manna. There is nothing at all save this manna. I say it like that because I think that's the kind of way it felt. Save this manna to look upon. And so you begin to see that, And he said, like coriander seed, the appearance thereof as the appearance of bdellium. And the people went about and gathered it and ground it in mills, beat it in mortars, boiled it in pots, and made cakes of it. And the taste of it was as the taste of fresh what? Oil. At least the oil was fresh. They hadn't spent all day long using that same oil to cook everybody's food, and you're getting it late at night, and you taste that, grease, But they didn't like it. And when the dew fell upon the camp in the night, the manna fell upon it, and if they're going to eat, what are they going to have? What they're complaining about. We want what? Yeah, we want flesh to eat. This manna. I don't think they say that in an encouraging way. So let's be on their side. Would you like what you have for dinner, the same thing every meal? I know we say I could eat pizza every meal. Really? We got a few left over. You want some of that? By Monday or Tuesday, you may be wanting something else. But any food we like. There's certain foods that I've eaten as a kid and got sick on it. I will not touch it today. I don't want it anymore. And it's just, I can understand that. We want a variety, and we had it in Egypt. Oh, you got that blackened fish out there in the Nile River, fish and cucumbers and onions. I could just see their mind going crazy. And what do we have out here of manna? So that's all we got. So let's gather it. How do you cook your manna today? Well, I grind it in little things. I make little cakes. How do you do that? We've tried every little recipe. And the taste of it was the taste of fresh oil. I don't know if that's good or bad. The psalmist speaks about this food for as a host, like food is for angels. Some translations have that. But here was the idea of bdellium. What I do know from Exodus 16:31 that it was white, and bdellium sometimes has a rust color, but the Septuagint translation looks at the bdellium in their translations. It's our idea of white frost. It's idea of hoary frost. It's kind of like a pearl white color, and that's kind of way that bdellium is said. All we have in Genesis that was a rock around early on, but what color it was, it says white in Exodus. So what could be white? Pearl white. You got cars now with the color of pearl white. And so it's a part of that white side. And the people went and gathered it. And what happened at night? More manna, right? God sustaining them. But they were complaining about that. Now, what does God do about that? Does he like it? Said, I know I made the creatures, made the man, and I know they need a variety of food. And I know they had that in Egypt. But he's not pleased with them complaining. It's a lack of faith in a God who can supply our needs. Why has he brought him out in the wilderness? To die. That's what he did. Well, that's going against his character, his motives. They're not that at all. A lot of it is time, are you going to trust me? And God's right on time. At night is falling, they get in the next morning. It's going to continue like that. But that can be madness. And we've got to direct our minds to this. I need to be thankful for what I have. And thankful for God for providing. He will provide what we need. That's what we pray for, our daily bread. Sometimes it's manna. So as we go through this chapter, how does he respond to that? How does Moses respond to that? All right, let's just put that aside. We'll do that in a moment. Let's do with, does Moses complain?
He complained about the burden that he was placed under.
That's a complaint, isn't it?
He probably felt like it was more than he could bear. He felt inadequate.
It is, but who did he blame? I think he blamed God. Have I conceived all this people? Have I brought them forth that thou shouldest say unto me, carry them in thy bosom as a nursing father carrieth a sucking child unto the land which thou swearest unto their fathers? You conceived them. These are your people. And you're going to bring them into the land. And the point he's saying it's too much for him to bear. I can sympathize with that, and that's probably the key of what we're looking at too from God. He said, when should I have flesh to give all this people? I'm not God. I'm not the provider. When have I had the opportunity to do that? But that's what they want. They want it from me. For they weep unto me, saying, give us flesh that we may eat. I'm not able to bear all this people alone because it is too heavy for me. And what does he say next? If thou deal thus with me, do what? Kill me. I pray thee, out of hand, if I have found favor in thy sight, and let me, if I have found favor in thy sight, and let me not see my wretchedness. I think he's had a nervous breakdown. What about you?
I think his frustration is with people rather than blaming God for the circumstances. He's frustrated with the people. Where am I supposed to get the meat?
Well, and he said,
and so he's not exactly blaming God. He's just very frustrated. I don't know what.
I think that's more accurate. And he says, do it alone. So he wants help from God. And what does God help him with? Gather you 70 men of the elders of Israel, whom thou knowest to be the elders of the people and officers over them, and bring them in the tent of meeting. I'm going to put my spirit on them. And you've got the point. Is the fact I can't bear it alone. Now, what did Jethro teach him? We've already talked about that in order to judging the people, to spread that. But here was at this moment. So he has the men come, choose you out of the elders, and how many men does he pick? Supposed to pick 70. 70 men. I do a job it takes 70 men to do. I should have complained earlier, huh? But there's the thought, I do it alone. He's bearing all that burden. I think that's a difference of testing God and his faithfulness and murmuring about coming out of Egypt. There's a difference between someone just frustrated and letting their ideas be known to God. And you may be at the point of having a nervous breakdown. Just talk to God. Kill me. I don't want to see my wretchedness, if that's the way it's going to be. And God immediately, you gather 70 men. And verse 18, say unto the men, sanctify yourselves against tomorrow, and ye shall eat flesh. For ye have wept in the ears of Jehovah, saying, who shall give us flesh to eat? For it is well with us in Egypt. Therefore Jehovah will give you flesh, and ye shall eat. So the burden is going to be kind of brought forth to the 70 men, but God's not pleased with complainers and murmurers, are they?
He does not like that. But like I said, he appears to have sympathy on Moses.
He does.
In the situation, even though he's not happy with the way that we know later Moses does something very similar. Why do I have to provide for people? And he's punished for that later. So it's not the first time it's happened, but you see that rather than God just being angry, whatever the situation, God knew that even though it seemed like Moses was venting at him, that God still had compassion on him and the situation he was in to take care of it, even though we know that God wasn't happy. Because rather than just going to God and saying, we would like to meet, is there any way we can have meet? Or Moses going, God, I need some help. We see that all of them just started complaining about what was going on rather than asking for help. And so we know from what's being said that God does not want us to come complaining, or rather we should come to him and asking him in faith. But it is interesting that even though Moses did something very similar in this situation, God doesn't necessarily punish him, but
Well, but your point is, it's not the same. It's the idea, I am at my wit's end, I need your help, instead of, how dare you bring us in this situation? That's to Joel's point. In fact, it's not doubting God, is that I can't bring the flesh, I need help. So he brings 70 men, and I'll put my spirit upon them. But what's going to be the curse? In verse 24, Moses went out and told the people the words of Jehovah. He gathered 70 men of the elders of the people, set them around the tent, and Jehovah came down in a cloud and spake unto them, and took the spirit that was upon him and put it upon the 70 elders. And it came to pass that when the Spirit rested upon them, they prophesied, but they did so no more. Holy Spirit came on at a particular time to speak unto the people the word. There was a buffer between them and Moses. And God was helping him do that. So I think he's answering his prayer. But sometimes your prayer could just be, I'm at my wit's end. I don't know where to turn or what to do. Help me. I can't do this by myself. And that's a comforting thought that God hears you. And he answered. Yes, sir.
I would think that once he said his prayer and God did what he did, that was a strengthening to Moses to help him go on.
Right, and he did that.
He had that help from
Yeah.
God. Whereas the people, I don't think they were wrong for getting sick of eating that manna out of the tube. But nowhere did they ever just go and say, hey, can we graciously, can we ask for
No.
something? Instead, they just complained. I think God would have gave it to them. He gave them
Yeah.
something different, but he was mad at them because of the way they did. I think if they were, he knew their circumstances.
He knows that. So here the problem comes. There'll be a young man said, these people are prophesying. Moses, I wish the whole bunch would prophesy. But it was always a problem. You're the only ones that can do the prophesying. Moses would be happy with that. But let's note this. Ye shall not eat 1 day, 2 days, 5 days, neither 10 days, nor 20 days. How often are you going to have quail? Come on. 1 month, 30 days. But the whole month until it comes out of your nostrils. And let it be loathsome to you, because ye have rejected Jehovah who is among you, and have wept before him, saying, who came out of Egypt. God didn't send Moses, you got 75 men today, go 75 more men today, go 75 more or 70 men the next day, until you get tired of everybody. I told you to do the job. That wasn't it. Enough to be a buffer to help him deal with that. I think God knows this. That's just, to me, an interesting contrast in this one chapter about the way, and you bring it up, how can I complain to God? Well, Moses just gives you an example. But doing that in faith, and I'm alone, I need your help. In essence, that's why I'm talking to God. You're the one that's got the people together. You're the one that's brought them out here. And I can't give them flesh, and God gives them plenty till they get sick. And they get tired. They lusted after it, and it was coming out of their nostrils. They just got food and just loved it so much, and they pay a price for that. So there's controversy either way it went.